There are a number of methods you can use to create a design using Texsoft design tools. The first one I'm going to use is by grabbing an image off the internet and copying and pasting it into the work area. Now, to enlarge or decrease the size of an image, what I'd like you to do is to use any of the 4 corner points, hold down the shift key, and then you can enlarge or reduce the size whilst keeping the proportions. So just put that there. So that's going to be our reference. And then I'm going to, well, let's just look at the drawing. It's basically a rectangular shape at the bottom with rounded corners. So that's what I'm going to try and reproduce here. So I use the shape tool, go into the rectangular shape tool, and I can draw in a rectangle. To create curved corners, I'm going to use the arc tool up here and I scroll right to the end. This tool allows me to create a curve between 2 points. So here, if I select the radius, in fact I'll leave it at 15 and then see what that looks like. Okay, and then you can click. It's a bit of trial and error. If 15 wasn't right, I could have just gone to edit and undo. The next thing I can do is use the select button here and draw around the selection, and you'll see there's a number of features that have appeared. This one will allow me to make a copy of whatever I've drawn or whatever I've selected. This one will allow me to rotate it. I can go to edit and undo, and this one will allow me to flip it horizontally, and this one vertically. You can't see any difference because it's a symmetrical shape. So I'm going to use a copy function, and I'm just going to create another level up here. Now, because the grid lock's on, I'm able to drag it down to a suitable size in stages. Okay, so I can see that looks, let's try that one. Now, if the grid lock wasn't on, it would be a lot more difficult to get it symmetrical. Okay, now for this next part, the top part here, I am going to turn the grid lock feature off because it will give me a lot more freedom when creating the curve. So I'm going to turn the grid lock feature off, and I'm going to use the path tool. Now this is the continuous line tool we spoke about earlier. So I'm going to start about here, and I'm going to, every time I click, it creates an anchor point, and I'm able to create roughly the shape that I want. Okay, now when I want to stop this line, I simply have to press the right mouse button. Okay, now cross your line over. I'll explain why later. You can click, and then we can get that other curve point here. So just by turning off the grid lock for this function, it allows me a bit more freedom. And then to end that line, I can right mouse click. Right. In 2D design, unless you cross the lines over, you cannot be certain there's not a small gap. Now this can be very problematic when you come to fill an area. So I'm just going to select those 2 lines and just try and make it a bit better. I'm stretching it this way for this. Okay, now these lines are unsightly, so we need to get rid of them. If I go to the delete function, if I press delete any, the whole line will disappear. I don't want that. Edit, undo. However, if I hold down delete and go into delete part of an object between the nearest 2 intersections, it will basically just trim those edges off for me, and I can create that shape.